moving one time is extremely hard. Moving 5 times, I will tell you, it is mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially draining. It is a lot of time, money, effort, but nevertheless, I recommend it to everyone that I know and have had the pleasure of working with. Why? Because it has kicked off our generational wealth. It has allowed us to be in the place that we are now, where our properties are able to pay basically our mortgage. And while we're not mortgage free, we are definitely paying a lot less than what we should be for the house that we are in right now. Welcome to Invest with Tanya. I am a real estate agent and investor that has pretty much seen it all, and I will basically be telling you about my experiences with what I see in the real estate market. Years ago, me and my husband got married. We actually got married in 2017, and this really does expand from 2017 to 2021. Those were the 5 years that we really moved and were hustling and doing it all. We got married while we were still in college, and even though we were in college, we had that instinct, well, my husband had that instinct that he did not want to rent. I had previously rented an apartment. I was kind of like on the edge, like, yeah, like let's rent, but if we can buy, that would be a lot better. And honestly, I had no savings. He is the one that brought the money into the marriage, and we used that money to put as a down payment for our first house, our first townhouse, which I will say that was an experience on its own. And I will say the first 2 properties we bought were extremely difficult in the sense that we had to find co-signers, sometimes even funds. It was just a little bit more pressure than the other 3 transactions that we eventually ended up making. And yeah, that first townhouse was the tiniest thing in the world. It was a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath little townhouse, and we actually bought it in a retirement community because we were able to get a really good deal on it. And during that year, I will say that is when our why really started to take shape, and we understood why we were doing this. We started listening to Dave Ramsey. He is really big on talking about generational wealth, how to keep your money, how to save it, and he's a really big proponent on paying off debt. In that moment, I was also getting my real estate license. So I had been working for about a year as a real estate assistant. So in 2017, I decided to get my real estate license. So I actually sold 2 houses pretty much right away because I was on a team. So we ended up using that money to pay off my debt and pay our school debt. So we ended up kickstarting that. We didn't have very much to begin with. We were both pretty much paying cash for the community college we were in. So we didn't have too much. Because of those commission checks, we were able to do that much faster, I will say, than most people that are working a 9 to 5. This is one of those things I really do recommend for college students or just anyone that's looking to get out of debt. But if you've never worked a self-employed job, I would also caution you not to quit your 9 to 5 just because selling real estate and building that trust of people does take a lot of work. Okay, so we ended up paying off our debt, and we actually were planning to stay there for 2 years. But the team that I was on, one of the clients for the team leader was actually selling their duplex, and they were going to do it for sale by owner. So we talked to him. We were like, hey, let us see the duplex, and if we like it, we'll submit an offer. So we ended up submitting an offer at full price, and we also were able to negotiate my commission, and we ended up getting the contract accepted. So we ended up having to sell the townhouse, and then after a few days, we got the townhouse under contract as well. And basically, under contract just means is that you've put in a contract on a house. The selling side has accepted it. The buyer side has accepted it. We're in agreement to move forward with the terms of the contract. From there, it was pretty easy until it wasn't. The contract on the townhouse ended up falling through. The buyers could not buy it anymore. And because we had such a closing date, we ended up having to move into the duplex early. So we were on it, we were there, and the contract on the townhouse had just fallen through. We didn't know what we were going to do, but luckily the seller ended up working with us. We ended up putting the townhouse back under contract after a month. So it was just so tense during that month. And then we were finally able to close after like almost 3 months of just waiting in that limbo. I will say with this one, we did have some trouble as well on the loan side. So we ended up switching loan officers as well during the middle, just because we had a few issues with the documentation, and we ended up having to put 25% down on that first duplex. And that is a huge chunk of change that obviously two college students do not have. And we ended up borrowing that money, and a lot of people will advise you against it, but it ended up being a good choice for us. And in this duplex, that is where we got our first taste of being landlords. It was a pretty scary way to go in And I say scary is just because whenever we went through and looked at the house for the initial showings, we saw that the side that the tenants were on, we knew that there was like a weird smell to it, but we didn't know the extent of it. So when we moved in, we noticed that there was cockroaches on our side, and we were just like, we know we didn't bring them in from the townhouse. We know that. So whenever the tenant moved out, because we had given them about a month and a half to move their things so we can bring in a new tenant, we ended up finding out that there was a huge cockroach problem. And my husband was saying that it was from their side because of that weird smell, but I was just like, nah, it's just going to be like, they just probably didn't clean that day, or I don't know, something. But there ended up being a huge cockroach problem. My husband probably spent like 2 weeks trying to get these cockroaches out, and we did end up having to call an exterminator, but a lot of issues. We ended up having to like replace toilets, replace the dishwasher, the stove, pretty much everything, because on that side everything was still from the 90s. So we were really trying to update it to where we can make it appealing for renters to go in and live there. And honestly, those renters are still there today. Even though we had that traumatic experience cleaning it up, having tenants was a lot easier. We had really good tenants because we followed some advice from different people, from like Dave Ramsey, from Robert Kiyosaki. We looked up a lot of videos like Meet Kevin, Grand Stefan, just to see what we were looking for in our ideal tenant. And we have ended up perfecting that as we went. So our tenants now are really good tenants, and I will say that we've never had any issues with them, like other than the refrigerator malfunctioning or an AC unit going out, because these units are pretty old, but nothing on their end. So that's always been good. We had a really good experience with the first tenants, and then about a year, well, really less than a year into it, about a year into it, we kind of got the real estate bug again. So we talked to our lender. We asked her, hey, so is it possible that we would qualify for another duplex in a city closer to my school? Because in the first duplex, we were closer to his school, and now I wanted to move to another city of 30 minutes away, just so that way I could be about 10 minutes from school and not have to sit in traffic all day. You know, it was just kind of like a preference thing. So we ended up talking to our lender. We were able to get approved by a miracle, and honestly, like, she has helped us so much. I really thank her because she did a really good job with those transactions and just finding ways to get us qualified, even if we had to go through unconventional ways. So we ended up getting to go into our next duplex with a FHA 3.5% down payment. So we just put 3.5% of the purchase price towards the duplex, and we didn't pay closing costs on that one, if I'm remembering correctly, because those duplexes actually stayed on the market a while. So that's one of those things that we're going into like a really good time where it's going to be a buyer's market. And if you see duplexes staying on the market a little bit longer, it's a great time to negotiate closing cost, repairs. Like, I know for the second duplex, the seller had also replaced the roof, the AC unit, and the HVAC unit. So we got a really good deal going into that one. But that one was, I will say, was a little bit sketchy. Moving in, basically the seller did not tell the tenants that we were going to need to be moved in within 60 days. And I will say we had to get the police involved just because they actually ended up vandalizing the garage of the house and breaking the garage door. The day that they were supposed to move out, I ended up getting a text message in the morning saying that they needed another day. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. And for some reason, we weren't even going to check the house, but we ended up just going to go drive by and see what's going on. And we ended up noticing that the garage door was part of the way open. Someone had crashed into it. Now the garage door couldn't open. And we noticed that the door to the house was actually wide open. So we ended up calling the police, and good thing that we didn't actually go in there because they had a dog in there. I don't know what type of dog it is, but it was a really aggressive dog. And they actually ended up leaving it, I don't know for how long, in one of the upstairs bedrooms. And it actually had been there for so long that it had gone to the bathroom several times and broken one of the doors. And so we ended up calling the tenant, telling him, hey, so there's nothing left in this house. We need your dog out of here because you have now broken the garage door, and your dog is, I think the dog actually ended up almost attacking one of the police officers. So we ended up telling him that he needed to come pick up his dog and leave. Yeah, so that was pretty much one of the most tense things that I have ever done with a tenant, with an inherited tenant, because honestly, like, when I say my tenants have all been good, we do a thorough check. Like, the tenants that I have inherited have not been the best, but once we are able to get new people in there, we honestly do a thorough check of their credit score, their employment history, how much they're making. We have them fill out a whole application to make sure that they are the right tenant for us. Anyways, we actually ended up remodeling that unit before we moved in, but it was still a bit sketchy. Like, there was people going into our house while we were remodeling it, asking if the old tenants were still there. There was like a random gray car that I'm pretty sure belonged to the old tenant, just driving back and forth through the neighborhood. And we kind of put it off for a few months, but I ended up getting very nervous, and there was just no one thing that made me nervous. It was just kind of a combination of everything. So I ended up calling my lender again and asking her, hey, so this, and this is happening in this neighborhood. Well, in this house. And I'm afraid that the old tenant is going to do something, just because the few times we had talked to them, they were very rude. They had lied. They had told us off several times. So like I said, I called her. She was able to work her magic again, and we were able to qualify for another house. But this time it had to be a house, not a duplex, not a townhouse, a house. Or maybe the townhouse could have passed, but we ended up opting for a house just because we didn't want to pay the extra townhouse fees. We ended up looking, and we found one pretty much right away. We had only been in the duplex for 4 months, so it was a pretty fast move. It was so fast. Like, most of my family members didn't even go and see that house. Like, so fast. I don't even think my parents saw it. So we ended up moving in December of 2020, and we basically stayed there all of 2020. So I will say that 2020 was the year that we did not move, but it was the year we got under contract for the house we live in today. That is another story too. So we weren't really looking, but I told my husband that if we were going to move, it needed to be into a new construction, because I was tired of fixing houses up. I was tired of, changing toilets, painting cabinets, walls, all those things. So it needed to be at least something with very, very minimal work, or something brand new. So we opted for something brand new, and we actually started our search in about September of 2020, and it took us about 2 months to finally put a house under contract. And I will say, with this one, we were very, very picky, because we knew that we were going to be here a little bit longer. So we decided we needed something that really fit our needs. So we ended up moving into a house that was a little bit farther than the location that we wanted. So we ended up finding the perfect house in a location about 15 minutes. Yeah, 15-ish minutes from where we originally wanted to be, but it checked off all the boxes. It had 4 bedrooms, it had 3 baths, 3-car garage. We really wanted this house to be somewhere that we could grow into and potentially start a family. And the process to move into this house was just a little bit long. If you don't remember, back in January of 2021, we ended up experiencing a lot of delays in wood, AC units, windows, all those huge delays. And our original closing date was supposed to actually be in May of 2021, but because of all these delays, we actually didn't close until September of 2021. So really, by the time we moved in, we walked in with a lot of equity, just because we put the house under contract at the right time. Even though at the time we put it under contract, house prices were super high for that time, but we could have never expected the way that they would have risen in 2021. So we ended up walking in with a lot of equity, and just reassured that we were making the right decision, because this was a huge purchase for us. This was not something I expected to move into until at least 35 years old. So like another 7 years. We were really fortunate to just have bought in the house at the right time. That's really it. It was just that one. I will say it was really just luck, or if you believe in manifestation, I kind of just believe I manifested this house and walking in with all this equity. So really, that's it for this video. There's been a lot of takeaways in the past few years from just like learning how to deal with tenants, learning how to manage my money, because that is one thing that before I started this, I did not know how to manage my money. It was pretty bad. And then like just becoming a real estate investor and being in that mindset is something that is so incredibly helpful in not just like being a real estate agent and helping my clients, or even being a real estate investor and helping myself, but it's just been something that has reached into every corner of my life and has really helped me make the decisions very tactically and strategically, because obviously I want things to work out. It's taking what you have in the moment, even if like it seems like you don't have anything, because remember, we started this journey as 2 college kids. We were basically broke. I mean, my husband had his savings to pay for school, but once that savings was used for the down payment, we really had nothing. We really just, it was just a lot of patience, a lot of grit and determination to get to where we're at right now. And I won't say that it's been a pretty journey, because honestly, I found myself crying so many times because I didn't want to move. And that sounds worse than what it is. I was just being a bit more dramatic. But it's just like whenever you're in the middle of the moving process, that everything just seems so heavy, especially when you've done it so many times. It can be very taxing on the body, and you know, all of those emotions, all of those traumas build up in the body, and your body stores them. So there is a lot of things that like I've had to work through, just because it has been a difficult journey. But if you are wanting to build up a real estate portfolio, this is honestly the easiest way. It's so much better than, you know, saving 25% down, 25% of the down payment for each and every property. Because if we had done that, we would honestly still be on property 1. We would have never moved out of that townhouse, and we would still be living on beans and rice and beans, as Dave Ramsey fans know. And it's like one of those things that has really helped us, and that is why I recommend it so much. I recommend to keep your debt low so you're able to save up money fast. I recommend that you really become a minimalist, because moving all your stuff after so many times gets pretty exhausting, and the more and more you accumulate it, the harder it is. And so that's why I will say move 1 compared to move 5 was so much easier, because we literally just had like a couch and a mattress. That was pretty much it. Moving into this house, it was a lot harder, just because we had built up so many more things. And moving out of this house will be infinitely harder. We really have taken the space and made it our own. That just comes with more things. And my last takeaway is that don't listen to anyone that is going to try to knock you down and off of this journey, because I will tell you, people really doubted this process. People really, I don't know if it was that they just didn't want to see us succeed, or just didn't think that it was possible. They really told us like, why are you doing that? 1 house is enough, stop being greedy. Or different things like, you need to go on vacation because you really need a break from all that house stuff. And I will tell you, we did not go on vacation for quite a while, because we had a bigger why, a bigger dream of building up generational wealth and being able to pass things on to our kids. And even just to enjoy life comfortably once we get to the stage of having kids, because we still don't have any. So yeah, my last tip is really to just keep your head down. Keep at it. Don't listen to anyone. And you've got this. Okay? Well, that was it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.